president overnight about the escalating tensions with North Korea.
Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un throwing a massive military march in Pyongyang as he continues to threaten the U.S.
Our own Lauren Blanchard is live in Washington, D.C. with the latest. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning, Abby, Pete, Clayton. Well, the president has urged China to step up in a big way to put pressure on North Korea. But China has said it alone can't force North Korea to give up its nuclear ambitions, despite being the North's largest economic partner. In yesterday's call, the Chinese president asked both the U.S. and North Korea to tone down the rhetoric before it worsens the situation. China has long maintained that dialogue is the only solution, and President Trump agreed, but he wanted peace, but he has also said he'll meet North Korea with fire and fury if it acts on recent threats.
Nobody loves a peaceful solution better than President Trump, that I can tell you. Hopefully it'll all work out. But this has been going on for many years. Would have been a lot easier to solve this years ago before they were in the position that they're in. But we will see what happens. We think that lots of good things could happen, and we could also have a bad solution.
As China calls for peace, new photos showing thousands of military officials marching in Pyongyang in support of Kim Jong-un, while North Korean state TV said any more reckless behavior from the U.S., quote, may reduce the U.S. mainland to ashes any movement. Their state TV also threatened the U.S. for the harsh new sanctions leveled on the rogue regime by the United Nations Security Council. China did vote in favor of those sanctions, and on yesterday's call, both presidents agreed the sanctions were an important and necessary step. Abby, Pete, Clayton.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
You know, a lot of people say we've got to give up on China. They're never actually going to follow through. They are the only ones that can put this to bed. I mean, we should really hope that they can come together and figure this out, because the alternative to that is a military.
They put it to bed by us putting the screws to them, because make no mistake, they're not our friends.
No.
They are our geopolitical foes. And so if we can find that place where we can really hurt them.
Put them in a box.
Yeah, secondary sanctions, things like that, where they really have to shut down.
Make them feel left out. Make them feel like they are not part of the party, right? Threaten them in their region. That is what scares them more than anything.
Well, they say they're going to sit on the sidelines if North Korea strikes first, comes after us. They're going to sit on the sidelines. If we strike them, they're going to throw their hat into this fight.
Behind Kim Jong-un.
Exactly.
That tells you everything you need to know about China.
Yeah.
Oh, we're with Kim.
Meanwhile, we're looking at our American allies, American citizens, and Guam, which is a U.S. territory, American citizens in the crosshairs right now of Kim Jong-un, who's verbally threatened Guam.
That's right.
And, of course, President Trump called Governor Calvo of Guam to reassure him that we're 1,000% behind them. And I love the governor sitting there in a T-shirt, takes the phone call. We have some video of him in his office as he received President Trump's phone call. Listen.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to speak to you, and I just wanted to pay my respect. And we are with you 1,000%. You are safe. We are with you 1,000%. And I wanted to call you and say hello. How are you?
Mr. President, as the governor of Guam, representing the people of Guam, and as an American citizen, I have never felt more safe or so confident with you at the helm. So with all the criticism going on over there from a guy that's being targeted, we need a president like you. So I'm just so thankful, and I'm glad you're holding the helm, sir.
So here they are in the crosshairs, the closest, richest target for this regime that has been directly threatened, as you said. And he's saying, thank goodness we have you at the helm, talking tough, finally holding the line. We had strategic patience. Strategic patience to the ears of someone at Guam means we're just going to kick the can down the road and hope this threat goes away, which is what the Obama administration did. And they've got tough options in the White House right now as far as what to do, but they're talking tough because now's the time to make something happen.
One of the other things he told him on the phone, we didn't play it for you, but President Trump said, tourism is going to go through the roof in Guam now because of this, because we're standing 1,000. They always say after you have some sort of a big issue, then it's the safest time to go. And I even, up in the office this morning, I said to you guys, I said, I want to go to Guam. I want to go to Guam. Now I'm interested. I would like to go to Guam. It looks beautiful there. And he said tourism is going to go through the roof as a result of this.
And people forget about it. I mean, my grandfather, even I did, my grandfather served there in the Navy in World War II, in post-war World War II. I mean, it has been a territory, it's been a part of America for decades. decades, and we've got almost 200,000 citizens, 2 military bases there, but it's a stone's throw from North Korea. So if these reporters in Washington, D.C. that are in a tizzy, sucking their thumbs and holding their blankies and wondering whether we're going to nuclear war, they're not the ones that should be worried. It's the citizens of Guam, and you hear this governor say, thank goodness we have President Trump.
You have a lot of people saying that the president's talk and what he's tweeting about North Korea, it's inciting this violence. It's a rhetoric we haven't really heard towards North Korea. And there are a lot of the people in this country that feel like finally we are getting tough with Kim Jong-un, and it's such an irrational player. So the president is doubling down on that tough talk, and he's responding to all of those critics. Here's what he said.
He utters one threat in the form of an overt threat, which, by the way, he has been uttering for years, and his family has been uttering for years, or if he does anything with respect to Guam or any place else that's an American territory or an American ally, he will truly regret it, and he will regret it fast.
Mr. President, you've said you wanted to send a strong message to North Korea. What do you say to your critics who say that your rhetoric is actually raising the tension?
Well, my critics are only saying that because it's me. If somebody else uttered the exact same words that I uttered, they'd say, what a great statement, what a wonderful statement. They're only doing it, but I will tell you, we have tens of millions of people in this country that are so happy with what I'm saying, because they're saying finally we have a president that's sticking up for our nation and, frankly, sticking up for our friends and our allies.
It's true. Think about if President Obama said, if almost the exact same statement. I'm just, because I can't stand hypocrisy. I don't care which party. So if President Obama were to say, if Kim Jong-un acts and wants to make threats against us or takes action, we are locked and loaded with a response ready to go. Would the response be as tizzied as it was the other day?
The opposite.
No, it would be the opposite. This was a message, though, the president. That message was for here in the United States, but also for North Korea and for China. He's saying someone very different is in charge. And if I'm going to draw that red line, I'm actually going to follow through with that.
Yes.
That is the game that we're playing right now. But Democrats, they're still not having it.
Yeah, or I'm not going to set a red line that I'm not prepared to enforce, which he's been very responsible about as well, as opposed to Barack Obama and his Syrian red line. But Democrats, including the deputy DNC chair, keep that in mind. This is the number 2 inside the Democratic Party in our country today, has this to say, comparing our president to Kim Jong-un. Take a listen.
North Korea is a serious thing. You have this guy making bellicose threats against somebody else who has very little to lose over there. And Kim Jong-un, the world always thought he was not a responsible leader. Well, he's acting more responsible than this guy is. And what I'm telling you is that once you start seeing missile launches, you're going to see the time for cranking up the anti-war machine is right now. If you don't want to get caught deer in the headlights, start calling for diplomacy in North Korea immediately.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is your modern Democratic Party. Crank up the anti-war machine as we stare down a dictator who says he wants to bring our country to ashes. Think about that.
North Korea acting more responsible than our president. So he then pulled that back and said that he didn't want to repeat that because people were taking it out of context.
I mean, I agree with this. I agree with this. Look, if we can have diplomacy, no one wants a nuclear war.
Of course.
But that they're acting more responsibly than we are, that's the laughable part. No wonder he wanted to walk that back.
Yeah. Kim Jong-un literally took an anti-aircraft gun and shot his uncle through with it.
Starving millions of people, threatening to nuke the United States and many other parts of this world. I mean,
we don't have enough show left to explain all the stuff that he's done.
Get a grip, people. Yes. All right. Well, coming up, it was the cornerstone of his presidential campaign.
Don't even think about it. We will build the wall.
We all know who's paying for it. Now Democrats are doing everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen, including shutting down the government.
And one congresswoman calling the NRA and Dana Loesch a national security threat. This morning, Dana is firing back. And welcome back. The city of Los Angeles wants to make it mandatory for contractors to disclose whether they've provided any service related to President Trump's border wall. One lawmaker is even pushing for this requirement to apply to the entire state of California. State Senator Ricardo Lara releasing this statement. I don't want to look back in 10 years and say Californians didn't do everything we could to block this wall, end quote. Here to weigh in is Steve Cortez. He's a former Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member and a Fox News contributor. Steve, nice to see you this morning.
Good morning, Clayton.
Well, first, your response to that LA councilman's comments.
Right. Well, I think it's patently absurd and unfortunately, though, very typical of the left. When they can't win on ideas, when they can't persuade the American electorate, they resort to coercion. So instead of winning in the marketplace of ideas, they're trying to use the marketplace of business to try to force businesses to comply with them. And I think, by the way, ironically, some of the people who would be most hurt if they want to start penalizing contractors would be legal immigrants who have always been deeply involved in the construction industry. So they might be hurting some of the very people they claim to be protecting.
I mean, it seems almost, it seems like something would happen under a dictatorship. We're going to look into, this is a legal wall being built, and a contractor.
It's a purity test.
Right. Wants to supply their supplies and labor, and they're going to be vilified for that?
Right. And by the way, I always, when we hear these kinds of things from the left, I like to turn it around and flip the positions. Like, let's say the right tried to do this, because I think it would be equally wrong. Imagine if the state of Texas were to say any contractor who was involved in building a Planned Parenthood clinic can no longer do business with the state of Texas or with the city of Dallas because we're a pro-life state. I think that would be equally absurd. If this is a legal business, the contractors are allowed to build it. If it's a legal wall, which the people loudly demanded, by the way, in the 2016 election, I was part of the Trump campaign, and I can tell you that nothing got the response at our rallies and among the Trump base like building the wall did. Because, and by the way, that's not anti-Mexico. It's not because we hate Mexico. We lock our doors at night in our homes, not because we hate those on the outside, but because we love those on the inside and we want to protect them.
Here's another quote from a Los Angeles City Council member on this whole issue. He says, we want to know if there are people who do business with the city of Los Angeles who wish to profit from building a wall that would divide us from our nearest and dearest neighbor, Mexico. So basically, would you call this a blacklisting?
I think in many ways it is. Like I mentioned before, it's really kind of a purity test. What I also think is going on there, though, and this is happening in my city of Chicago as well, where Rahm Emanuel is suing the Department of Justice over sanctuary cities, I think both in Los Angeles and Chicago, these are attempts by these city governments that are largely failing their populations, that are crime-ridden, poverty-ridden. These are attempts at a diversion. So the city of Los Angeles, unfortunately, has more people living in poverty than any city in America. In Los Angeles County, 40% of the population is on Medicaid. It's a system that largely is not working. Income inequality is massive, perhaps worse than anywhere else in the country. So I think this is a diversionary tactic. Don't look at our failings here. Look at this target over there. But I think eventually it won't work. The American people demanded a wall. This is clearly a federal issue, not a state or local issue, and then the wall's being built.
Unbelievable. I'd love to hear from our viewers this morning on this issue. Friends at foxnews.com. You can weigh in on that. Steve, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up here on the show, video is insane. A police officer jumps from an overpass to